Hi, this is Nelson Garcia. I'm a nurse and a perfusionist, and I am one amongst many healthcare providers serving on the front lines during this COVID pandemic. I'm here answering some frequently asked questions, and the question that I'm addressing now is, what are the sequence of events that occur in our bodies in response to being exposed to the coronavirus in terms of an immunity response? Well, when I'm talking about this topic, one of my favorite tools to use is this chart, because I think it just is so good at answering a variety of questions. So if I look at this chart, there's a timeline that occurs from left to right. And the first thing I want you to notice is there's a pattern. There seems to be 14-day increments that I am seeing across this chart. And I think that's significant for you to pay attention to, because you hear this number a lot when your doctor, your practitioner is telling you, hey, I need you to quarantine for 14 days and then come back and maybe we'll recheck you. Or the CDC is giving recommendations. Have you been without symptoms for 14 days? Okay, maybe you'll be able to go back to work. There's something important about that 14-day period that is occurring in our immunity response. So let's take a look at this chart. And at the very beginning here, let's just say, for example, this point in time is when you were out shopping, Jewel, Meyer, or you went to church, you went to somewhere where there was a large congregation of people, and for some reason or other you were exposed to the coronavirus and it got into your respiratory system. So this line over here, this blue line, represents that virus, that coronavirus that actually gets into your respiratory system. And it wants to do its favorite thing, which is to reproduce. And if it's not reproducing, it's dying. So what it does is it looks for material that it can use to rebuild itself and multiply. And so that material is in your respiratory system, your lungs. And so it breaks down that tissue in your lungs and takes those building blocks to build more coronavirus. So during this period of time, you'll notice it's from this point and then 14 days forward is considered the incubation period. And during that time, if you could measure the quantity of that virus, it'll be increasing. And then here, say around the 2-week period, your body begins to notice that, hey, this is not right. This second line here represents symptoms. And, you start feeling yucky, you start feeling febrile, your temperature's up, you start feeling runny nose and sneezing or coughing, and then your body aches and your fatigue. That's what this line here represents. After a couple of weeks of incubation and letting this thing run wild, your body says something is wrong. And the inflammatory response starts to kick in. And this curve here represents your immunity saying, let's go ahead and send some, I'm going to call it military, because it's like a battle going on in our bodies, to this fight and meet up with this viral invasion. So this first, what we consider is the faster on the scene antibody is the IgM antibody. So it arrives here and it recognizes this virus and records its markers and says, I'm going to go ahead and start multiplying myself too. And when it gets to a point where it can overtake the number of viruses that are trying to invade, why then the good side wins. And after about, if you'll notice here, 7 days, a week, in a healthy situation, immunity-wise, it starts taking over. And you'll notice that this viral count starts to dim and diminish because of the strength of this immunity. Well, after about day 14 in a healthy situation, in fact, it starts to eradicate it completely. And at this point, and you're not having any symptoms as well, if you were to take one of those swab tests, you would notice that you would not be able to record the presence of the virus here. And that's what we're wanting to see. The good guys won. Now, what does this other curve mean? It is the antibodies that arrive late but stay on the scene longer, whereas the IgM did its job quickly and then diminished. The IgG antibody arrived a little later but continued to increase in number and then plateaued. And then they stuck around. Now, why is that a good thing? Well, because now this IgG has the imprint, the blueprint, the recognition of what this exact antigen looks like. And if it shows up on the scene again, why then it's not going to arrive here to an incubation period where it can just have its way and start multiplying. Instead, it's going to meet down the line a host, a body that already recognizes it right away, and the battle begins. And the numbers will be in our favor because we can get on top of this, viral presence that hasn't had a chance to incubate yet and get on top of it. Now, this is obviously an example of a healthy immunity situation, and there's several circumstances that can affect which direction that battle goes. But in essence, this is, I think, a good picture of what happens in that push and pull struggle between invading pathogens and our immunity. So hold on to this and see if you can just let that help you make sense of different questions that come up. For now, thank you, and we'll talk later.